Our listener base has doubled. We are now up to 6.
So it was not a wasted blast then.
It was not. I don't waste my blasts.
You know what they say about a wasted blast?
Yeah. So, funny what do they say?
It's wet.
That wasn't as quite what I was hoping for, but that works. That's also what I say about a wasted blast.
Mythos Busters, investigating the mystery, monsters, and madness of Arkham Horror, the card game.
Hello and welcome to episode 74 of Mythos Busters. I'm Sean. Joining me tonight are my buddies, my pals, my friends, my mis amigos. Nick, how are you?
Hello. I'm well. How are you?
I'm glad that you're well, and also, well, myself.
Oh, good.
It was the most Midwestern exchange that I can think of. Also with us is Ian. Hey, Ian.
Hello.
How are thee?
Oh, I'm good. I'm kind of still brushing off the dust of the holidays, and
Dude, that's for real.
just got back to work yesterday, and I feel like 2 weeks of work were compacted in these past 2 days. So
Dude.
I'm ready to podcast.
I feel every word you just said, and they were accurate.
Yeah.
So missing tonight is Scott. He's on a string of working weekends, so we weren't able to hook up with him this time. We got a fun show for you guys tonight. We're going to go through our regular openers. Got some fun news, I believe. And then continuing from last time, we're going to discuss the scenarios in the Dream Eater box at some level of detail yet to be determined. And then, of course, we'll close it out with some tentacle time. But before we do any of that, I missed last episode. And before that, we skipped a weekend. So I feel like I haven't freaking talked to you guys in forever. So what y'all been playing? Ian, start with you.
Well, I feel like I've kind of been...
let's say that everyone's probably going to caveat with the holidays were rough, but...
Yes. Yes. So, I pretty much haven't been, coming up with anything new and spicy, but I've pretty much just been playing through my existing campaigns. So, my most recent game was last night, kind of jumping back on the horse, playing the newest scenario, 1,000 Shapes of Horror, with my Mandy and Tommy decks. So there's nothing too, off what you would expect, except for the fact that I am really enjoying, with Tommy blasting myself with Dynamite Blast. It worked out surprisingly well last night with me needing to get a certain amount of damage without wanting to engage a certain enemy, and so I blasted my brother Xavier to pieces. So that was 3 damage, plus the damage from Brother Xavier exploding, plus the resources back. So it was pretty awesome. Yeah.
How many Dynamite Blasts are you running in Tommy?
I just have one, actually.
Okay.
And before this game, I was like, should I take it out? And then in my mind, I was like, I have this memory of it coming in handy last time around, so I kept it, and I'm really glad I did. So
to my mind, there are 2 investigators right now that stand head and shoulders in the realm of being unkillable, and that's Tommy and Diana. So it makes sense.
Yeah. I came pretty close to dying. He was at 6 damage at the end, but then I was also just continually getting allies out, because I have 6 allies in the deck, I think, plus a story ally and charisma. So yeah, even with being that close to death on paper, I didn't feel too worried, because I just had all these soaks ready, and I could pay for them, so... And the nice thing in that game, too, was I was actually stuck on one resource, and I was like, oh shoot, how am I going to pay for this Dynamite Blast? But I was able to take some attacks of opportunity, which killed another asset, which gave me enough resources to pay for Dynamite Blast. So I think this is the first game I played with Tommy that I was really okay, I see where this is going. I see the shenanigan possibilities.
Got the engine going.
Yeah, when you can suddenly need to pay for a Dynamite Blast and you're only at 1, and suddenly you have enough to do it. And yeah, it was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Dynamite Blast as far as I can tell, has always been one of those that I think fits perfectly on a stick to the plan, because when you need it, you don't have it, and when you want it is when you need it, as the old saying goes.
Yeah.
That's not how that goes, but
I wasn't going to
you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's a good point. Once I get stick to the plan with Tommy, probably going into the next scenario, that might be a good option to throw on there.
I started that with Leo in our Iron Man Carcosa run, shoving Dynamite Blast on there, and then I did it in my solo Carolyn run, throwing it on stick to the plan with her, and it was really nice. With her, it was especially nice because it's easy to get overloaded with enemies with Carolyn and have no answer for them unless you're set up nicely. So I could just be like, boom, just blow them all up.
Yeah, and it's nice because usually you don't want to run like 2 copies of it, but then, like you said, if you have just 1 copy, then it's like never showing up for those prime situations. But if you have it in your pocket at all times...
Do you ever think we'll get like a level 2 stick to the plan that just lets you stick 1 card under it?
See, and I was going to say a level 5 exceptional stick to the plan that's like 5 cards.
All right now.
For 10 experience?
I say something reasonable, then Nick has to one-up me.
Dude, I've been trying to figure out how to make a leveled up version of Shotgun for the longest time because it's already 4 experience.
What do I get out of that extra experience?
Yeah, like what would that do?
Nick, how about you?
I told myself I would replay the Dream Eaters scenarios in preparation for this episode, but that didn't happen. So the last Arkham I played would have been a few weeks ago at this point, before the holidays. And I played some standalone Search for Kadath, because that scenario is amazing. And I did my a variant of my lead investigator deck, which is Roland. That's mostly yellow and relies on some shenanigans with bouncing allies back and forth to get clues or to put clues back on locations and stuff like that. It's fun. I think I played it 2 or 3 times just to try and see every location, which was still unsuccessful between those 2 or 3 different runs. Yeah, that was really fun. Other than that, I still have not played Thousand Shapes of Horror, but I did do... Is Search for Kadath the one right before Thousand Shapes? It is, isn't it?
Separate campaigns, technically, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. Sure. But I mean, that's literally all that I've played recently is just those 3 games of that. Oh, and I played a couple of Excelsior, just because I still haven't played all the permutations, all the final acts enough to where I know, like, I've mastered them, you know what I mean? Despite having designed it. So that's what I did.
I was about to say, like, one would think you'd be slightly familiar with it, but, you know.
But there's interactions that I haven't seen and stuff like that. And also I find that I think Excelsior is a fun one to test decks against, because it asks both like standard Arkham questions of you, like how are you going to deal with this enemy, and also it requires you to have answers to enemies you can't fight, which is becoming more and more of a thing, I think, as these campaigns go on. So maybe. I haven't played Thousand Shapes yet, like I said.
No, I mean, I think I tend to agree. I'd say of all the standalones we've gotten, it's probably the best testing scenario. I'm shooting from the hip on that one, but it sounds right to me.
Sure.
Then for my part, I started up a Return to Carcosa campaign, because the last one I played ended at Black Stars Rise, and I wanted to take one all the way through to the end. Unfortunately failed, because I got... Let's see here. I got through Unspeakable Oath. This is a Patrice and Diana campaign, just because I figured if I'm going to do this, I might as well play like my favorite investigators right now.
Right.
So Patrice and Diana. It was going really well. I decided to take a detour. We did Murder at the Excelsior Hotel. And then things started to release again, and I started to realize, like, oh, I've only played Search for Kadath like once. And now there's a scenario out that I haven't played at all, and I'm in the middle of another campaign entirely. So I put that one on pause where it's at, which probably means I'll never get back to it. R.I.P. But yeah, so I'm like diving in hard to the current cycle. I've got Tommy and Luke in the Dream right now on my table, and then Waking World's going to be Mandy and Tony. Really digging it so far. I've played a decent amount of Luke. Tommy, I started another campaign with, but I've yet to play him with experience, which is why, Ian, I thought you're like just 2 experience to get 2 Xaviers is just going to make a difference. So I'll be interested to see how that goes. And then I mentioned this at the beginning of the show, or when we were preambling for Look What I Found, I think, is that I'm currently on a mission to find out which off class is best for Crystallizer of Dreams Tony. Starting out with Survivor, so that's going to be that. That's going to be that campaign. Looking forward to it. I don't know okay. Tangent, but super relevant.
Sure.
I'm really digging so far. We're not through it yet, but I'm really digging so far, like the 4 scenario campaign structure, because you get a lot of experience quickly. You still have an overarching narrative, and you don't have to devote like weeks worth of playing Arkham to finish it. Presumably.
I agree. Yeah.
So
I like it as well. I don't like having to wait twice as long for each scenario, because one of the campaigns is like 5 times more exciting to me than the other. So like after Search for Kadath finished, I was like, and to be fair, I haven't played Thousand Shapes of Horror yet, so everything could change, and it probably will. But I'm just like, I want to, I wish they would finish the Dreaming campaign and then do the Waking. You know what I mean? Like, I wish they would do something like that, where you still get a full campaign over the course of X amount of months.
Yeah.
It's just a shorter sprint to the finish line.
It's just a new iteration of the fact that the release schedule has been a problem for the campaign structure from this game, or in this game to begin with.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I do see that. Like when I was picking up my Tommy and Mandy decks, I was like, how long has it been since I played these? Because I played them through, Waking Nightmare when the box first came out. Like they were, whenever that was. So it's been a while since I picked the decks up and remembering where the story was at and what I even was supposed to do with these decks. Yeah, it definitely feels like a long time. But then on the other hand, I do like Sean was mentioning, that it's just like once they're all out, like I'm really gonna enjoy just being like, even if I don't play Interconnected, like I'll just bang out a 4 scenario campaign, with these decks because I want to test them or whatever.
And if you feel like making it longer, throw in standalones. Like I have found that because the 8 scenario campaigns are so inherently long, I tend not to throw many standalones in that often anymore, because I'm just trying to get through and see the different resolutions on the stuff that's current and just kind of experience it. It just doesn't happen as often, but I could really see myself in a 4 scenario campaign throwing a side scenario in once or twice in that campaign. Yeah. Now you always have to suspend a little bit of disbelief with that, because if you're stuck in the Dreamlands, how the hell are you also in the Bayou? But
yeah, that was one thing I didn't realize a lot of people did, or rather a lot of people held them to that, held that own restriction over themselves until Excelsior was announced, and I saw so many comments on Reddit and in Facebook saying oh, finally one that makes sense in any campaign because there are hotels everywhere. And I'm like, wait a minute, really? You don't play the standalones in campaigns because what? So do you not play Wendy in any campaign?
I still think it's so funny that the person who is hardest core into RPGs among all of us is the one who ignores the story narrative aspect of this game the most.
I don't ignore it.
I'm not judging you. I just think it's funny.
I agree that it is a little.
It's not what I would have
weird.
expected.
Right, but it's a different kind of game to me.
Yeah. Anyway,
I
really
feel
digging
like
it.
this,
Sorry,
the side scenarios have always just been not made much sense anyway inserting into the campaign, but it doesn't bother me much. It's just since the days were in Denwich and then let's go to Louisiana and we'll come back.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so anyway, tangent over, I guess. Really enjoying this campaign, really looking forward to seeing where it goes. I want to play Kadath again. I want to get to Thousand Shapes of Horror, and by the time I do that, the next one's probably going to be out. So good stuff. Oh, the game's in a good spot, guys, I think. I wish I have had more time to devote to it. All right.
I'm hoping with the holidays aside and other stuff that I can get back on the train.
Yeah, and like there's snow on the ground and it's gross outside, and like there's plenty of Arkham in my future, I'm hoping.
Speak for yourself.
All right, California. Ian, let me tell you, in Minnesota we have this thing called weather.
I've heard of it.
They have it there too. They just don't have the shitty ones.
It often affects our ability to go outside and enjoy air. All right, anyway, moving on from there. Ian, what patron news have we?
Well, the first piece of business is, as always, to thank our board members. That is Chris B, Chris H, Chris U, our conglomeration of Chris's, Morton, Jared, Ian, Kyle, Philip, Dave, Abelio, Nathan, Chad, and Robert. Thank you so much for your huge contributions to what we do. Special shout out to a random patron this time around is to Andy Yinkst. Thank you, Andy, for your contributions as well. And we do have a couple of new job titles to announce. The paperwork has been processed through HR. And so we'd like to announce that our patron Michael is going to have the very coveted title of Designated Dreamer Shaker. This one might require some explanation.
No, I think everyone who just sees those words will understand exactly what it means. Exactly what that job is.
Dreamers need to be shaken, and someone's got to do it.
Wake up!
All right, we also have our other patron, Thomas Jefferson Perryman IV. Ooh, that's quite the name. I just got to sit back and admire it for a second.
There is
Thomas
history
Jefferson
behind that name on like 3 different levels, I'm sure.
Thomas is going to be occupying the title of Director of Real Estate Acquisition, Dreamlands Division. So,
which is a particularly hard bit of real estate to acquire, it turns out.
Yeah, we've been trying to open the Mythos Busters satellite in Kadath for some time, so Thomas will be making that happen. Hopefully.
It's a Louisiana Purchase joke.
Wow, thanks, Nick.
I did the opposite of what I normally do, which is like, don't like draw attention to it. Just roll past it.
Just point out how bad we are at nuance.
I hit the brake. I came up with it.
There's a big shining billboard pointing towards the joke there.
Well, thank you guys for hopping on, and thanks to all of our patrons as always. I'm excited that we're edging ever closer to the tattoo. Like it's becoming a reality for me now. When we first threw that out there, because Justin suggested it, I was like, this will never happen.
Yeah, no way.
As, of course, filling the board would never happen. So it's not in the show notes, but I wanted to throw this out there. Guys who have been, all of our patrons who have been very patiently, and I thank you for your patience, waiting for Dissonant Voices to drop. I am very close to being able to drop the Dream Eaters box Dissonant Voices. I have all of the voice edited. I just need to throw some effects on there, get some music, a little background, just some kind of like post-production editing, and it's going to be out there. So pay attention. We're going to announce it, obviously, to our patrons in the Patreon venue when that's available. And hopefully it'll be very soon.
Yep. Oh, and forgot to mention, because Justin will yell at me if I don't mention it, make sure you check out mythosmerch.com where you can pick up your Mythos Busters hat, your Mythos Busters hoodie, backpack, all kinds of stuff on there. So check it out.
My favorite nowadays is the coffee mug. I drink from it whenever it's clean. It's just it's a solid little bit of ceramic.
It's hard to dethrone that hoodie for me.
That hoodie is so like comfy. My best friend now. I'm always going around with that hoodie.
I mean, I'm wearing it right now, so I can't argue. It's very cozy. It's very cozy. All right, so let's move it on then to community. Nick?
Yes. So for community this week, I would like to highlight a fundraiser that is going on. I'm sure most of us, if not all of us, are aware of the crazy apocalyptic wildfires that are happening in Australia currently. And one of our board members Jared is local to that area. I don't want to say unfortunately, but I mean it's becoming a problem for him, a very real problem that he has to face. And so what he is doing is he is donating to a fundraiser. Let me pull up the links. I had them just a minute ago. Basically, if you go onto Facebook and you post, you tag him in the Arkham Horror group, and you post pictures of either fire axe or fire extinguisher in play in your game, then he will donate $5 to, and I have the fundraiser link right here. I'll throw that up, and everything will be in the show notes as well, to the NSW Rural Fire Service, who are actively fighting against the wildfires that are taking place. So he'll donate $5 for everything, and then he also encourages anybody who is interested to go to that and do donations for themselves. And his original Facebook post already has some posts on there, people doing that, taking that challenge and running fire axe and fire extinguisher and posting those pictures and tagging him. But we definitely want to get more out there because this is a serious problem, and anything that we can do to assist with that would be great. So,
excellent. Yes, always love a good cause in the community, and this is definitely is one. So check that out. Okay, so moving on from there, Ian, what news have we?
So we got one news article dropped on us during the holidays when I was least expecting it. And this was Weaver of the Cosmos, which is the name of the 6th and final Mythos pack in the Dream Eater cycle. So this is the conclusion of the B-side, I believe. Yeah, 4B. So there's a big boss battle happening. Again, usually we don't go too much in the mechanics, but this mechanic is very cool. It is basically the giant spider monster Alichnaka is going to be made up of multiple cards. Like each leg is going to be a card, and then it's actually going to be spinning around between locations. And so you're kind of going to have to be moving between locations and trying to choose like where you're going to take on these legs. And I don't know, I just think it's a really cool way to represent this boss battle. And I think it's going to make it feel different than some of the other big old one bosses that we've had to face that are kind of, after a while, it's just like stats on a card, right? And this is doing something different. So I'm looking forward to that. And then we also got some player cards, of course, spoiled, which
as we are wont to do.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and have Nick read the Eye of Truth.
Certainly. So the Eye of Truth is a level 5 Seeker skill card. It has 4 wild icons, and it has the spell and practiced traits. And its game text reads, if this skill test is on a treachery and the test is successful, add that treachery to the victory display and attach the Eye of Truth to it. While attached, the Eye of Truth contributes its skill icons to all tests on copies of the attached treachery. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
It took this straight out of the dollar bill, though, right?
Looks like it. Well, it looks like it could be another big tentacles exploding clue.
These are... Yeah, no, we'll leave that be.
No, this is insane. Like,
yeah,
how many scenarios are there, especially late campaign scenarios, where there's like 1 or 2 treacheries that can just easily cripple you? Like, think of City of Archives and the one that forces you to ditch your entire hand, or like the top X of your deck or whatever. And like you can commit this to anything like that, and then it sits there and continues to help you. Oh my god, it's so good. I'm surprised it's not exceptional.
Yeah, and it's 4
level
wild
5.
icons. Yeah.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, I'm surprised that they're letting you do 2 in a deck.
For 10 XP.
I think it's definitely like if you're playing a 4-player campaign or Iron Man, like, I want my Seeker to run this because this is where you're really getting big bang for it, that it's going to be helping everyone. And you're cycling through the deck a ton, so you're seeing that treachery over and over again, presumably.
Yeah, I suppose I didn't think about it, but I suppose solo, it's probably you're not going to get as much mileage out of it.
Sure.
Unless you're Sean and you draw the same treachery 5 turns in a row.
Yeah.
That is the thing
Sean
I do.
needs to take this.
Stop looking at the sun, Jim.
I mean, it's also nice because it's actually taking that original treachery and adding it to the victory display. So it's like, first of all, it's getting one copy out, and then it's helping you succeed at whatever's left.
Yeah.
It's also what I like about this is it's not restricted to being committed to a treachery. You could still commit 4 wild icons to anything if the opportunity to hit the right treachery never comes up.
Right. Good point. Yeah.
This makes me wish that Ancient Evils was a little more interactable and had a test associated with it.
Meow. Meow.
Instead of just, oh, fuck.
Well, I mean, I think we're seeing alternatives to it as the game goes on more and more, so there's that at least. How often do we say this card is often just Ancient Evils? Which is what you want, right? Like, it's Ancient Evils, but occasionally you might be able to do something with it.
Right.
At first, I was just thinking of this in terms of, like, straight-up revelation tests, but then this is also good for, like, say, a Frozen in Fear. Test it, it goes away, and then anytime anyone needs to do that test, then they got their back here.
I dig it.
Yeah.
I don't think ever... I mean, this could go anywhere, though. This is universal. As long as you can take this card, you'll get a roughly the same benefit out of it. 5 experience is not nothing, though.
Yeah, it's big. I'm more okay with it that it's in Seeker. Like, Seeker is not one of the classes that immediately springs to mind that, like, I'm pressed for XP compared to some of the other classes.
Yeah, and also Seeker, like, a lot of Seeker's high XP cards aren't ones that you would throw in any Seeker deck. Like, they're not like Guardian with weapons, where it's like, which flavor of weapon do I want? It's more like they all kind of have their own uses, or their own specific builds, at least from my experience. So it's nice to have something that's a little more universally applicable, so that no matter what your Seeker deck is, this looks as enticing as maybe another one. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I dig it. The other spoiled player card is a green one, so I'm going to read this one. This is a sawed-off shotgun. This is a 3-cost, level 5 asset with a combat and agility icon. Item, weapon, firearm, and illicit traded. Uses 2 ammo. For an action, you can spend 1 ammo. Fight instead of the standard damage. This attack deals 1 damage for each point you succeed by to a minimum of 1, maximum of 6. If you fail and would damage another investigator, this attack deals 1 damage for each point you fail by to a minimum of 1 to a maximum of 6. And it takes up just 1 hand slot.
This is amazing.
Oh, surprise, surprise. That's unbelievable.
But, I mean, even just looking at the parent card, Shotgun, and thinking about, like, the difference between a sawed-off and the difference between a full barrel, and then these 2 cards and their differences. Like, you don't get the combat boost. You don't get the +2 to combat.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But the damage goes up. You now have a threshold of 6, or a cap of 6 instead of 5. And it only takes 1 hand slot. Like, oh my god, I love this.
You gotta work harder to get there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's also in the class that encourages, to some degree, not so much now based on the cards that we've seen, but encourages that succeed by 2+, archetype. And I think this is an end cap weapon, or a finish line weapon for that deck.
I mean, this with double or nothing could be
Yes.
pretty massive.
Exactly.
Yeah, you just have to be able to get it high enough to pass it.
So, aside, I've always been afraid to ask this question, but we're in a safe space now. Is there a difference between a sawed-off shotgun and a sawn-off shotgun?
I have never heard the term sawn off.
Really?
before.
I've seen that before, and I've always wondered, like, okay, is that that's a thing, right? Other people have seen that.
I'm gonna have to Google this.
I Google searched sawn off shotgun, and Google immediately says including results for sawed off shotgun.
Okay, all right. Well, that's
that
all
tells me
I need
no.
to know. Okay, all right, cool. Carrying on.
And Wikipedia confirms they're the same thing.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay.
Well, I definitely like its boss killing potential. I think this is the flip side for me of the card we just talked about, where Rogue is kind of pressed for XP, and 5 XP is that's basically 10 XP for both copies. That's kind of rough. So,
Obel.
sure. So I'm thinking this too is more of maybe a 3-4 player party where you can be like a dedicated boss killer type player and you can devote your XP to that, whereas in lower player counts you probably need that XP for other stuff.
Mm-hmm. And it's one-handed, so you can sleight of hand this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
to get
key.
extra uses out of it, which is really nice because that's the biggest drawback of blue shotgun is the 2 ammo, and once you're out of that 2 ammo, it's just taking up both hand slots as just a giant cudgel that you can't actually swing. Whereas this, you can sleight of hand it out. I still think I like the interaction of Lupara with sleight of hand better because it's more consistent. You get +2 combat, +2 damage on your sleight of hand, and then it pops back into hand. But this is the flashy one. This is the one that, like, again, I think 4-player this has a home. 3-player probably, but lower than that, maybe not.
And because I think you need some, because it doesn't have that native boost, and if you're not Tony, like the other rogues aren't necessarily like high base combat. So Tony obviously is probably a good user. Otherwise,
Skids.
You're looking at like well connected to get some and do that, maybe that Smaug model of like hoarding a bunch of resources and hitting that, or like a sure gamble where all of a sudden you're turning that negative modifier to a positive.
Yeah,
like stuff like that. I think so. Because it's only 2 bullets, obviously you can, like, Rogue has quite a few tools to add more extra ammo, but you don't want to waste those. So I think you can't just throw this in. I think you need to include some support cards for sure.
And if you're already going for that succeed by 2 or more archetype anyway, which I kind of hope we see more cards that lean that direction, because I think that's a fun archetype that just doesn't have... I guess I'm just building it wrong, but I don't think it has enough tools currently. Oh, Network brings up Momentum, which is a phenomenal skill card. Like, that's probably one of my new favorite Rogue cards, is Momentum.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a different topic. Like, that archetype is really cool, and a lot of the stuff that you'll be packing in that archetype is stuff that will make this even better for not having that combat bonus, because you'll have tools like Sure Gamble and like, Momentum and stuff like that to give you those extra bonuses to make up for something that is lacking it like this.
Yeah.
And if there's any place for a weapon that requires a bombastic test, like that's just that's green all the way.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely Momentum, and quite a few Rogue's gotten a few of these new skill cards and have some on the way that you're really just aiming for a couple good shotgun blasts.
Yeah. And does Rogue even have, like, what's their other big weapon? Is it just the typewriter?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and I'm lukewarm on the typewriter. I've never actually ran it. But that's the one that you spend actions to get combat bonuses, right?
Yeah. So I love the theme of it because I love the idea of just like busting out this Tommy gun and spraying wild. But I think in practice for Rogue, I've ended up just using more conventional weapons, and because you're getting more actions, like it's kind of like you're just spending extra actions to do more damage that way versus like
and
pumping
actions...
it into a Tommy gun typewriter.
Right. Yeah, and actions are they're so needed. Like you all having more actions is so good, and just throwing them onto a typewriter, while it may be fun, I definitely think there are probably better things you can do with your actions than just boosting your combat.
Yeah.
Network brings up Lupara with a question mark as far as big rogue. I wouldn't consider that a big rogue weapon. I think big, like 4 or 5 experience, like the end gamers. Lupara to me is like the rogue weapon. Like that to me, that's my favorite rogue weapon. I love the Lupara.
Yeah, it's just like it's kind of the big, like you say, end game or kind of boss killing weapons, like your lightning guns, your bars,
flamethrowers, shotgun. Yeah, that sort of thing. The ones that you look at for like the last 2 or 3 scenarios of a campaign.
Right.
Like when, how am I going to get those? When am I going to get those? And what am I going to use them against? And yeah, we've really just got the sawed off and the typewriter, and Rogue needs more. They need some more big weapons.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think
you really want them encroaching on Guardians in that way?
Guardians have how many? Guardians have like 4 or 5 at this point, and if anybody should have big weapons,
It should be Mystic, yes.
Mystic already
we
has
just
that,
call them spells.
you loser. But that's what I mean is like everybody has the answers. Seeker doesn't really, which is good because they shouldn't. Like their answers should be much more conditional for enemies, and Survivor doesn't really as well. They have like Meat Cleaver and Old Hunting Rifle, which are good in certain decks. Old Hunting Rifle isn't, but Meat Cleaver definitely is. But they don't have a huge, just big damage output. I think we could stand to see another 4 or 5 experience rogue weapon at some point.
I agree.
I like my rogues.
I honestly think like probably the strongest thing in this card's favor is that one hand slot. Like as funny as it is to say, because even like leaving sleight of hand aside, just the fact that because a lot of times the problem with your lightning guns, your big weapons is you have that and then you gotta waste it on some small piddly enemy. Because you can only hold that unless you have your bandolier out. But with this, you can have your regular weapon that you use to kill smaller enemies, and then you have this waiting in hand, and you don't have to waste that ammo until whatever big boss you're looking to kill comes out. So I like that aspect.
Right.
I'm definitely going to give a boss killing build a try with this in standalone.
Well, and also playing two-handed weapons, like it represents such a pivot in the game. Like that's something that you usually, like, at least from my experience, I end up, unless I'm playing a 4-player game, which is rare, and I'm the designated killer, I usually end up sitting on my shotgun or my bar for multiple turns. Because well, I mean, I don't point it up. I lay it flat, but I usually end up holding it in my hand for many turns because I'm not ready to lose the other things in my hand. Like, especially if I'm playing Roland, like the fingerprint kit or that's or Hawkeye folding camera. Like it's like this kicks them out, and when it does that, you need to know like I don't need those anymore.
Yeah,
that's just rough.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, unless I'm missing one, I think that's about it for the player cards that were spoiled. Am I missing one? No, that's it. Okay, yeah, that's about it for the news.
All right. And because Scott's not here, we'll go ahead and skip our general rules, PSAs. So let's hop straight into our main Tupac, the Dream Eaters scenarios. So starting with the Gates of Sleep, I grabbed I actually have Gates of Sleep set up on my table right now.
Oh, such a good scenario.
Yeah.
And I've got my campaign guide. So I think the first thing to mention is the dream selection, right? The fact
that's right, yeah.
Yeah, you've got each class has a dream. There's 2 neutral dreams, and there's a bunch of dreams for the different.
Oh yeah.
Everyone forgets about that.
Yeah.
It's really cool, and I like it. What's interesting is I don't want to call it like a walk in the park, but I would hazard to say that Beyond the Gates of Sleep is on the easier side of scenarios. Yes, no?
I think disagree? So, yeah. Overall.
I mean,
it's no curtain call.
It has, right. It has, I think it is on the easier side, but it has the built-in difficulty button, like, that you can enact mid-scenario. By choosing not to stray from the path, which that makes it a lot harder, or at least a lot more action intensive. But yeah, I think otherwise it tends to be on the easier side.
So agree.
Which I don't mind at all.
No.
No, not at all. But what I think is interesting is we get this cool boost because, like, being able to just pull a card of any class, well, not any class, of your main class, or, you know, something else cool if you happen to have the right trait, like, that's a big boost for a lot of scenarios. So it's just kind of, it's interesting to me that it comes into a scenario that's a little bit on the easier side that you'd get that type of boost. Anyway, either way, I do dig it. It's cool to be able to just go grab a card. What you can get, criminal or illicit. You can, like, give a boost to someone else if you're a medic or assistant. It's just a cool, I don't know. I like stuff like that. Now, it's a lot to read, and and I say this because I had to read it all without making any egregious mistakes. If any of you guys eventually listen to Dissonant Voices, there are a couple little mispronunciations that I just let go because look at all this text! But it's really cool. So I'm hoping we see more stuff like that. Now, the scenario itself, I think the structure is interesting. I think the biggest thing is that the kind of the first half of the scenario is kind of a race without much hindrance, which is new.
Yeah, other than the two gatekeepers.
Sure.
Like, they can be kind of an early, especially if you don't know what to expect, like if you're playing this blind, they can kind of shut you down for a turn or so. But once you're past them, then yeah, it really is just like there's nothing stopping me. But I also have all this time. Like, you know, it's really it's really kind of an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, when I first read that you're like setting aside the encounter deck, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop, and it eventually does. But I'm actually surprised from my times playing it that it's still able to, because that feels like something like without the encounter deck, like this is just kind of gonna feel kind of matter of fact, like you're just going along and there's nothing really standing in your way other than the location effects. But I feel like because it is a race, because once you know what happens in the second part, that it still has a good amount of tension, which is surprising for not having an encounter deck around.
Yeah. Have you guys found at all that because while you're in that first part of the scenario, Doom is doubled, essentially. Have you guys found that, have you had any runs where lollygagging a little bit too long has cost you in the end? Have you ever doomed out?
Yes. My blind play, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Part of the problem was, my blind play of Dream Eaters was with Patrice, which is maybe not the best choice to try to learn Patrice while also learning a new campaign. And so part of my problem was not knowing how much time I had, and the other problem was, like, with this Patrice deck, getting some turns where, like, I really need to play this card because it's going to be gone. So I spent too much time, like, getting assets out that I thought were going to be key in that first part. And I was, like, one turn too short at the end.
Yeah, you got to kind of just go.
Yeah.
And as always, I'm not speaking from a solo perspective, so you guys can correct me if I am missing something here. Yeah, Nick, like you said, the two Guardians are a little bit of a wall. I've not really ever been stopped up by them more than like a turn, but I can see that being a thing in solo, because you got to hit a test on either side of the stat bar at 3 in solo, right?
Yep. Yeah, I played Luke, and I remember having a little bit of trouble. I also played this like 3 times in a row, like bam, 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 as Luke, and I remember at least one of those 3 plays, I was sitting there for a couple turns, just like, God damn it, just like testing 3 actions in a row and failing.
Oof.
Yeah, like, so it can, like, it's rare, but it definitely can stop you up.
So then once you get through that... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ian.
I've gotten pretty lucky with them, because I feel like they are kind of a substantial obstacle, but... like, premonition helps a ton with those tests, of course, because premonition helps with everything in the world. But yeah, I think they can be substantial, but it's just, like, especially in the blind play, but once you know what to expect, then you can kind of tech for it a little bit.
So once you get past the initial part, you hop into the path. And I think it's a really interesting little thing that Matt has done here where, from a narrative perspective, the Guardians tell you to stick to the path. And from a mechanical perspective, you see what's happening with the locations, and you immediately go, well, I'm not doing that. Except the few who saw it as a challenge, I guess. I'll be very interested to see what... Yeah, I was talking directly about you. I'll be interested to see what happens as a payoff to those who bothered to labor to stick to the path. Because the first time I hit that scenario, I kind of did quick mental math in my head. I didn't math it out because that's not what I do. But I kind of did the quick mental math in my head. I'm like, how could I possibly get enough clues to advance? 3 actions to get a single clue down. I need 10 clues in multiplayer. Yeah, it's a bit of a thing. So I'll be interested to see what comes of that, because I've not done it myself, but it does not seem like an easy task.
Yeah, there's a reason I played this scenario 3 times in quick succession. It's because the first time I was like, oh, okay, stay on the path. And I'm like, whoa, this is hard. All right, I'm resetting now that I know what to do. And the second time I was like, it just took me too long to get down there. So the third one, I blitzed down to the bottom of the steps and then spent the rest of the game doing that, and I got it. And then I read the resolution, and I'm like, fuck you, Matt. 0 experience. And when I talked to him about it, he, of course, cheeky Matt is like, well, do you always do what you're told? And I'm like, come on, man. I'm the Guardian. I play by the rules. They tell me not to do something, I don't do it.
I have to say it wasn't really a choice for me. I pretty much just went off the path.
Very fucking rude.
Yeah, immediately.
Immediately. I didn't even think about it.
I was like, well, no. I mean, the path is where off the path is where the actual scenario lies, so off I go.
I just cannot resist an unrevealed location, so I had to see what was there.
Entirely fair.
One day I'll do a playthrough where I don't go off the path.
I mean, I hope it's worth it.
And this is also our first introduction to the new swarm mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's fun, isn't it?
It's really interesting. It's a really interesting way to add threat to an enemy, but give you an option to mitigate that threat in a way that we've never had before.
Because
you don't have to necessarily kill all of the swarm, but if you take a chunk out of that swarm, suddenly it's only dealing 1 damage to you instead of 3.
But if you don't take a chunk out, they hurt. They hit hard.
Nick, what's your experience been?
I mean, everybody knows I love encounter cards that steal my cards from my deck. That's just so fun. I can't get enough of that.
They go back. They go back.
They do, yeah.
Kill things.
Right? But no, I don't know. It's fine. It's an interesting play. I guess I wondered, or I didn't really wonder, but it answers that question, how will Arkham handle X? And in this case, it's how will it handle a ton of small enemies? And this is one way to do it, and it's a fairly elegant way for the most part. Yeah, I'm just not a fan of encounter cards stealing my cards. And also, I don't think there are any in this scenario, but in Search for Kadath, you end up getting 2 health swarm enemies that I'm like, oh, you can fuck right off the edge of my dick, sir. No, thank you.
Wow, that escalated quickly.
That's what they say in the Dreamlands.
Yeah, I think that's the flavor text on the card, actually. So they're just annoying, but I think that was obviously the design of them. So
yeah, it definitely incentivizes anything that hits multiple enemies. Since they each act as kind of a separate enemy, your Storm of Spirits, Dynamite Blast, that kind of thing.
Right.
I've also found that this mechanic in particular really benefits those investigators who rely a lot on evasion, because when you evade one enemy, you evade the whole swarm. Mm-hmm. And for how much damage a swarm can take, particularly when the encounter deck is comboing and adding more to a swarm than it would normally have just by default, a quick evade is a nice way to go.
Mm-hmm.
You know which one I hate? Which one is it? Is the furtive Zoog? The one that you can only ever take one off it and then it runs away. I think it's
Oh,
furtive.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's so annoying.
No, it's not furtive. It is... Hang on, I'm going to get it.
Stealthy, isn't it?
Nope.
So many
Inconspicuous.
Zoogs. Oh.
The inconspicuous Zoog. It's swarming too, and when it would be defeated, so when you would take anything off it, cancel all excess damage, and move any of its remaining swarm host cards to a connected location exhausted. So the next turn is going to ready up and hunt in at you if you don't move. So, God, that thing's annoying.
That's a fun one. Inconspicuous Zoog is a good band type.
That's definitely the name of my trance dream acid band in high school.
Yeah, once these things start swarming too, it can be pretty bullet intensive if you're just planning on killing them. So I was happy, like, it's nice when, it wasn't this scenario, but in the next one, when I had, like, Tony Knuckle Dusters and just, like, smashing spiders with his brass knuckles. Don't have to worry about bullets.
Swarming has successfully gotten me to try and evade as Roland. So, I mean, I guess... Good job.
All right. So then, as far as the rest of the scenario goes, I think the other big thing to mention is once you make it to the Enchanted Path and the Enchanted Woods. Yeah, the Enchanted Woods is what they're called. That's an interesting set of locations. I love that they all have 2 experience. It makes it a very interesting little shopping spree for clues. How disappointed are you guys when you run headlong into the location that has the Gug, though?
Oh.
What is that called?
Yeah, I think it's the Lumbering Gug, is it?
Yeah, Great Stone Circle is the one that spawns the Gug. And the experience points are on... There's 1 on the Gug and 1 on the location instead of 2 on the location.
Yeah, Laboring
Gotta
Gug.
remind myself what that location... Oh yeah, and what does the Gug do again? Laboring Gug. Oh, he just sits there. He cannot enter the... So he circles around.
Yeah, so
But
he
he
can go
hits
to the
super
other
hard.
the other path, and he hits really hard.
Yeah, I did do a bit of a merry-go-round on one playthrough.
What's really rough in multiplayer is when someone unearths the Gug and then nopes out and goes back to the path, and then the next person goes into another enchanted woods and then goes into a place where the Gug can hunt to, and it's like, damn it!
Don't poke the Gug.
Don't feed
I
the
can
Gug.
see how that would be a game changer if he's revealed early versus if he's revealed late.
Yeah, and like at the wrong time for the wrong investigator, swinging in and taking 3 damage is a thing. So he's formidable. He's not nothing.
That's why this has become one of those scenarios where I get a little iffy about moving last action to a new woods.
The old where doom awaits issue.
Yeah. At least until that Gug is out of the way.
Right.
All right. Beyond that, though, I think it's a pretty straightforward scenario once you kind of get to the Enchanted Path. I just think kind of all the distinctive flavor is a little bit more early on. I'm trying to look at what are kind of the other distinctive treacheries here. There's a few. You've got the new hidden cards, which are all really annoying because, guys, is blood right 1 word or 2? I don't know. I think it's compound. I think it's 1, but I don't know.
Is this another deck list where no one can ever decide on 2 words or 1 word for deck list?
I do like Somnophobia as a new remix of Rotting Remains, where it's a higher test, but what you commit gets a little bit more flexible. So I dig that. God. And what? Somnophobia? No, wait. Deeper Slumber. If you're playing a deck that draws a lot, that one is a damn bummer.
That one I forget.
That one is goes into your threat area and your maximum hand size is reduced by 3 and is checked every time you draw a card.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So it's drawing the sign on steroids.
Yep. Except drawing the sign reduces your hand size by 5 because your entire 5
Oh, it
fingers
reduces it
are,
to 3. Yep, that's right.
Your 5 fingers are all occupied drawing the sign. I heard that somewhere. I don't know if it's right, but it makes sense to me.
The new hidden cards are interesting. That I think most of the hidden cards have something in common, including the Carcosa ones, that they always seem innocuous until they ruin your game for you. And I find these to be true for I had one game where I had I think 2 of them for a good chunk, and at the end it was just screwing me over. So yeah, get rid of them immediately if you can, even if you think you can't. They will come back to haunt you.
The hidden cards are really insidious in that way.
Yeah,
they have been from the beginning, but yeah. It also, I don't know, it makes you count odd things in your hand, which is new for me. So as far as resolutions go, I'm intimately familiar with these now. Thank you, Dissonant Voices. So no matter what, you end up getting Randolph Carter, who's an interesting ally, I think. This one is the one that gives you your physical stats, right? Combat and...
Yes,
yeah, okay.
Combat agility.
Combat agility. And then off you go into the Black Cat interlude. And...
Oh, yeah.
Well, of course, off you go into the next campaign scenario if you're playing it as an interconnected campaign. But
right.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this is a pretty cool scenario. Like I said, I'll be very interested to see what not straying from the path does for you. I'm sure it'll be disappointing because it's got to be really hard to do, and there's no way that it can pay off. But Nick, I will defer to your reaction when that hits.
This is also where you I forgot exactly how it works, but you choose whether the cats get to collect their tribute from the Zoogs or you intervene on behalf of the Zoogs.
Yep.
Which I've done a bit of each.
Yeah, that hasn't paid off yet to my knowledge, though I've only played Search for Kadath once, so maybe I missed something.
There's something about it in Search for Kadath.
Yeah, it does.
I think that...
Okay.
Yeah, if you intervene, then I think the cats start in play as an enemy.
Oh, yep. Okay.
But I think that's it.
No, piss off the cats.
So far.
They're spiteful.
Right.
Spiteful creatures.
I mean, I was like, I'm not going to intervene. These little fuckers bugged me this whole scenario. So no, you do what you're going to do.
Yeah, so you basically side with the Zoogs or the cats.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah.
I've done a little bit of both.
Then move on to the Web of Dreams campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Waking Nightmare. So I also have to apologize to anyone who listens to Dissonant Voices, and maybe I should be shaking a fist at Matt because our NPC for this quest,
oh my god,
has a name that is not immediately apparent on how you pronounce it, and this comes from someone whose last name is Swidajewski. And I'm pretty sure I got it wrong, so you're just gonna have to listen to me slaughter it the whole time, and that's just the way it's gonna be.
It's okay. It's only listed 50 times.
I think it's actually Dr. Maheswaran.
That's how I would say it, yeah.
But that's not how I pronounced it in the recording, and by the time I realized that I was injecting an extra syllable in there, it was way too late to correct it, so that's how it's going to be. Anyway, that's the first choice you get, is whether you direct the good doctor to come with you or stick with the patients. Mm-hmm. And then you set up.
Yeah, and she comes in pretty handy because you can exhaust her to automatically exhaust the, forgot what these guys are called.
The orderlies.
The orderlies, yeah. So I've so far always taken her for that reason because I don't want to have to deal with them. Yeah, the suspicious orderly, because they cannot be attacked, or be dealt damage. And while it's engaged with you, you cannot investigate. So you have to be able to evade them, otherwise you can't investigate, which can be a problem, especially for certain investigators.
Yeah. It's a really cool enemy design, though. I think this is on par with, I don't know if it's quite at the level of Whippoorwill. I think it might be, though. Because it's an enemy that just, despite the fact that it's still an enemy printed in the same way that enemies are, it just interacts with you in such a different way than most enemies.
Yeah.
And if you're somehow unable to address it, then it just gets nasty later on.
Yeah.
I found in 2-player that I don't always draw both. There's only 2 of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't always draw both of them. So I imagine in solo it's even less often.
I think I've seen 2 of them out of the 3 times I played the scenario.
Okay.
Yeah,
separately.
I usually come across them. That might just be bad luck. Yeah.
They're a pretty light card. They float to the top.
Yeah, they do. They're the opposite of jazz. I'm surprised that... well, I guess I was looking at it from a solo perspective, but now looking at it from multiplayer, I suppose if you are the combat person, if it's engaged with you and you can't investigate, that's not a huge deal, really. Since they're not doing damage or horror.
Yeah, I mean, in multiplayer, I think they become far less of a problem if you are specialized, because they're going to come out if you're drawing 3-4 cards a turn. You're going to see them. But whoever's really running heavy enemy management can just engage them, and then they sit until later on when they transform.
They just wear them like a backpack for the...
Yes.
Yeah, so I suppose in multiplayer, maybe you won't be as compelled to take the doctor with you.
So at a certain point, the infestation kicks in, and that's its own new mechanic with a separate chaos bag.
Mm-hmm.
That was cool. I like that.
How have you guys found that to... Okay. I've found it to be a little swingy. I know it kind of has its own... It has a bit of its own moderation mechanic to it, because you have to get both of those things before things get shuffled in. I think it's the cultist, right?
2 cultists.
That add another infest. But I've had games where it's like, is there anything in this bag other than a cultist? Please. Please, game. So, I don't know. Anything with random chance can get iffy sometimes, but I think in general it's a pretty cool mechanic.
Yeah, I guess because you're compounding that with the other randomness that's already there in the game, like Chaos Bag and Counter Deck and all that. Yeah, because my first few games, I think it felt decently balanced. Like I was going through a good bit of the Infestation Bag each time before the Cultist came out. And my most recent game where I was playing solo Leo, I think it was one of the games you described where I just kept drawing the Cultist, and so the infestation was just out of control. So yeah, I think if you get bad luck, then you get in one of those situations where there's not much you can do about it. But overall, I do like the mechanic, because I thought it was a kind of a neat little twist to get this whole separate bag, and feels almost like a Arkham 3rd edition thing where you're drawing to activate these different effects.
Where does the infestation start?
Act 1A? No.
I mean, like, location. Do you pick?
I think is a location with most clues or something like that. Yeah,
the most clues.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't remember exactly how it worked out, but the first time I played this scenario, because after you cleanse, or whatever it's called, like after you OxyClean a location, it can't be infested again. Right. Is that right?
Yeah.
That is accurate.
Okay. So I don't remember the specifics of it, but I remember what happened was I had the upper levels of all the locations on like the first floor were all infested, but all the locations in the basement were not. So as soon as I could like cleanse a location, the first thing I did was clean the stairwell.
Yeah.
And then I never had to worry about anything. Like anytime it was like infested location, I'm like, I can't. Like, you know what I mean? Like that, because there's that choke point. It almost made that super easy for me. So then when I was reading about all these people who were like, oh my God, this scenario is crazy hard. It blindsided me. And I was like, what, really? Like, I didn't think this was that hard. But I guess that just equates to it being super swingy, which I then realized like on my second and third playthroughs, because those did not go as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's once you kind of understand the mechanics and the relationship between those, like the clues, the infestation, and all that, then you can kind of mitigate it. But yeah, if you just draw bad tokens or if your pacing gets messed up, then there's not much you can do.
Yeah, that's pretty much the winning strategy that I found so far, is like you're trying to go fast enough that you can hit that choke point before it spreads too far. And in my solo Leo, when it didn't go too well, it was because like I kept drawing the cultists and it spread down to the lower levels before I could hit that choke point. And then at that point, especially in solo, you're pretty much screwed. Like you're not going to be able to cleanse all those locations.
Right.
I'm trying to think I don't know, the location structure of this one's interesting because you have that bottleneck. Is it the stairs?
Stairwell.
Yeah. I found the first time I played through this, I played through it with Luke and Tommy, and Luke broke that because he put an open gate on the location behind the stairwell, a barricade on the stairwell, and then open gated out to one of the first area locations. Or sorry, gate boxed out to one of the first area locations, and then put a second gate down. So he and Tommy like put up a barricade, and then suddenly came from behind and wrecked all the enemies. It was pretty cool. I'll be interested to see if any playthrough lives up to my first one in that regard. I'm trying to think of what else. The spiders themselves are interesting.
Mm-hmm.
They're more swarm. I found them to be a little bit more threatening than the Zoogs, personally.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Also, is it caught in a web? Is that the one that just locks you down? Sickening webs.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, sickening webs. And so,
Yeah,
like,
that
I've
one
been
can
playing
be
2-player,
rough.
so I haven't had like giant problems with it. It's been annoying, but I can only imagine that certain solo investigators just get wrecked by this card.
Yeah, it can really slow things down for you. I played solo Tommy, so it wasn't a huge issue. It just cost me an action, usually. But yeah, I can see where, like, if you're playing, like, Mandy or something, this wouldn't be great.
Yeah, solo Leo, it was this kept popping up for me, and it was a problem. And, like, he could pass the test, the combat test. It was just, like, that action, like, soaking on top of everything else slowed him down just enough that I couldn't get out of there.
Yeah.
I find this scenario psychologically disturbing just because I hate spiders.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I've played so much Lord of the Rings and spiders are everywhere there, and it doesn't bother me. But the fact that they're in this hospital scenario like makes it worse for me, because I could just imagine being like a patient in a hospital and all of a sudden these spiders are crawling out of the walls. Like,
also, you know, and Tolkien didn't ever have spiders like bursting out of anyone's mouth. To my memory.
Fair.
That one's a little on the disturbing side.
I think he cut that scene out.
Oh god, I'm looking at the art for the Corrupted Orderly, and I'm just like, yeah. And I don't have a thing for spiders. Like, I'm totally a spider bro. Like, I like spiders. I think they look scary, and you know, if one surprises me, I'll probably screech a little bit. But
Surprise spider.
but logically, I know that they're generally good creatures, unless you live somewhere where they're poisonous. But coming out of someone's mouth is a thing.
That's where we draw the line, definitely.
Because you should only no. No.
Stop. Cut it off.
What are you thinking?
I said no. I can't. I want to, but I can't. All right. God, someone help me back on the rails here.
Oh God, that's
so. A Night Terrors is a fun one. Is that in this scenario? I'm just looking through all the.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Yes, Night Terrors isn't it?
It is. Okay.
Yeah, it's in the one that looks like a bunch of ninja stars.
Yeah.
Merging
Yep,
reality.
yes, it is.
Or caltrops, one of the two.
It does look
Ninja
like
caltrops.
caltrops, yeah.
Looks like barbed wire raptor. Anyway, after you fail a skill... so yeah, you put it in your threat area, and then after you fail a skill test, reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. Draw each weakness revealed this way, and remove the other cards from the game. And then it's a will test of 4. test wheel for after this test ends, discard Night Terrors even if you fail. That's one that has, like, it normally doesn't trigger. Like, I normally, like, look at the top 3 or whatever, reveal the top 3, and it's like, oh, there's nothing there. Like, that's fine. It just ends up discarding the rest. Or, I'm sorry, removing them from the game, which sucks. But every so often, it pulls a weakness, like Tommy's rookie mistake or whatever it is. And I'm like, God damn it, like... All I did was fail this investigate test, and now suddenly I'm losing 3 cards out of my play area and removing 3 cards from the top of my deck. Like, oof.
The art on this one always...
I love how principled you are against, like, Swarm and Empty Space and all of those mechanics.
Anything that touches your deck.
It's my shit.
Well,
off my shit.
It's mine.
Hands off.
I took time making it. It's not great. I like to play my cards.
The art on Night Terrors always throws me off because for some reason, like, it makes me think it's like the girl from The Ring, and the tables have been turned on her, and the tentacles are now trying to attack her.
I've told you guys about my relationship with The Ring on this podcast, right?
It sounds familiar.
Okay. Yeah. I hate it. That's my story.
I've only seen the second one.
Oh, interesting.
And it was... Meh,
I've only seen the first one once and will never watch it again.
Yeah, we know what we're doing for next Arkham Knight.
No! Have you guys ever made the mistake where when you shuffle certain things into the encounter deck, you shuffle the Grey Weavers in when you're not supposed to? And all of a sudden,
And then you draw one and you're like,
they
whoa!
hop out and you're like, hi, Emma.
You're not supposed to be
This
here.
is suddenly a problem.
Pretty sure I've done that every time I play this scenario. It's the Agents of Atslak Naka, right? That's that set. Gotta read
That's
things.
a web.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I'm pretty sure I killed that thing before I realized it shouldn't be there.
So resolving this bad boy. So again, Randolph Carter joins up with you. This time it's the Mind Stone Randolph Carter. And what are the other variables here? The Doctor's alive. The Doctor's not alive.
Yeah, the fate of the Doctor, basically.
And then we are thrust bodily into the... Let's see here, what else? Oh, no, Resolution 5. Yeah, then straight into the Black Cat, which is where we make, I think, probably one of the more interesting decisions of this campaign. I said as if I've played the whole thing.
Well, it's definitely something new that, well, because obviously we've never had a separated campaign, but the fact how you can choose how to influence, like, who's going to get help, who's not going to get help.
Mm-hmm. It's very Labyrinths of Lunacy. But, like, in a narrative, like in a campaign narrative
like
structure,
Right.
which I think is really cool. Yeah.
And you can also choose to split the difference, right? I forgot what that one is called.
It shares information, shared knowledge of the Dreamlands.
Right, yeah, instead of getting help for either side.
Yep. And then there's, okay, fine, have it your way then, which I've not been brave enough to pull the trigger on yet, so we'll see.
I'm pretty sure that's Don't Stray from the Path, but for both campaigns.
Because here's the deal, guys. Let me find this freaking line. Because I read it, and I love Matt. I love you, but I rolled my eyes really hard. Oh yeah, the cat rises and leaps onto the top of a nearby fence, walking along it with the kind of grace only cats possess. So that line alone told me that the author who wrote this story really wants you to like that cat. So I have not had the courage to dismiss the cat yet.
Well, that's like it. Like, because we know Matt, like, my metagame knowledge has influenced my decisions in this campaign more than I think ever before. Because before this campaign released, he changed his icon on Discord to a black cat, like a profile of a black cat. And I've known that he's a huge cat person. Yeah, he's a huge cat person, and he has been forever. So, like, as soon as that comes up, yeah, it's just like, okay, we need to take this seriously. Like, this is something, even though me, like, as a player, I'm like, oh, of course, it's the mystical cat, you know, and...
Nick's like shaking his keys at the cat.
All right, Matt, I'll play your game while I play your game.
Throws a bone for the cat. Am I doing this right? Anyway, so that decision adds tokens to your bag, generally, for both campaigns. Which I think I've actually, up to this point, been very bad at record keeping and have probably done wrong.
Oh, it can be so confusing sometimes.
Yeah, there's been more than one time, not in this campaign, but in other campaigns where I'm like, oopsie, did not add that token for like 3 scenarios.
Yeah, and they're...
I wish they would have, like for this book, specifically the campaign guide for this campaign, I wish they would have implemented some sort of slight color shift between the two campaigns, like anytime, like especially in the interlude when it's referencing the 2 different campaigns, because I don't remember what they're fucking called. Like, I just wish that there was like, okay, this one has an orange background and this one has a blue background, or you know, like something like that, just so it's a visual difference. But I know that that's like, there's printing costs and everything like that, so whatever. But am I the only one who's run into that, like, has an issue with that?
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean,
I've
it's
noted
also
it.
just a issue of like, because I have so many campaigns going on at once, then it's like, okay, now I gotta open up the other campaign entry and edit that, and yeah.
Yeah, it can be a thing sometimes. And I think that's kind of... I'm trying to... Yeah, that's more or less the end of the box.
Mm-hmm.
So, guys, as a self-contained product, how did you feel about the Dream Eaters?
I love it.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I think it's one of the strongest boxes. It's like a whole experience.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more frustrating from like just a purely logistical standpoint, because you have to have the 2 different campaigns, and a lot of times that means sharing cards or disassembling and reassembling decks, and that can be a bit of a headache. But
Sure.
if you slice that out of it all, I think the box is really cool. The follow-up scenario that I've played so far has been awesome. I'm really digging the shorter and more, I don't want to say more nuance, because there's plenty of nuance in the other campaigns too, but it's I don't know, I'm digging the shorter campaigns so far.
Yeah, I'm liking the difficulty level so far.
Yeah.
It feels like it's a good place where it still has some challenge, but I haven't had any table flipping urges yet. But there's been some tense games, so especially for Waking Nightmare.
Yeah, definitely so.
That one does seem to run closer to the wire as far as difficulty goes,
Yeah.
between that and the Dream. Because even with, like, and again, I'm getting ahead here, but I fucking love the scenario. The Search for Kadath, like, you can check out at any point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's a push your luck. Whereas the Waking Nightmare, and again, I haven't played Thousand Shapes, but the hospital one, the St. Mary's one, is like, ooh, that's much more of a nail biter.
Yeah, I would tend to agree that that one causes me far more stress than the other one. Also, I just want to throw it out there, the Dissonant Voices video for this box, like, we're doing Dissonant Voices, these voiceover projects on a by product basis, so whatever the product is, that's the singular thing we're going to release. There are so many goddamn words in this campaign guide. And I don't know if I fully agree with Scott that I would say that it's too much, but what I will say is that it is a barrier to me enjoying it every time I play.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really hoping...
TCU was that for me.
Yeah, and TCU is like right up there too, for sure. So I'm really hoping that having these kind of tools out there for people where if you want to enjoy it, turn it on while you're setting it up and you have to do none of the work except just listen. So if that's the thing that appeals to you, go ahead and sign up on our Patreon. That's going to be available to anyone at any level, and it's going to be available real soon. I'm going to be wrapping it up hopefully this weekend. So ideally, the first Dissonant Voices will be out at and around the same time as this episode. So,
Ooh. That excites me because I've wanted to play these, like, start another campaign in Dream Eaters. But yeah, there's too much text.
There's a lot of text.
Too much reading to do in my card game.
Yeah. Anyway, excellent. Dream Eaters, great. Let's move it on to Tentacle time, guys. Oh wait, hang on. Do we have a thing first? It's 90 minutes, guys.
Well,
Could we possibly actually wrap the episode? No. We have a patron question, do we not?
I mean, not if we don't try to. It's not going to happen by accident, Sean.
That's true. We have one patron question left, right?
Yes,
we have time
there's
for that.
There's one on show notes.
This is a new question that we got.
And there's no byline. Who sent us this? Do we know?
This is from. Give me a second. I'll grab it.
Sure. So I'll go ahead and read the question, and then we'll figure out who it's from. So, if you had to design a brand new investigator for the LCG that has not yet appeared in any Arkham Files game, who would it be? For, name, class, occupation, and what the gimmick would be, including signature cards. And this, all right. Thank you, Ian, for just fucking copy pasting it here.
You're welcome. I love you.
I'm going to do my best, but I apologize. This comes from Jesse Pekka Kumpulainen. Yep.
Sounds
Sorry.
right.
But thank you for the question. So, I've actually thought about this a little bit. I would go weird. I'd go real weird. I'd go like Matt weird.
I bet mine's weirder, but go
Okay,
ahead.
all right. Well, let's have a weird off, buddy. Here we go.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
I want to see the ghost. I want to see something weird where it's like a ghost or an alien or.
We already have Yithians.
Well, in one scenario, but I want like an actual.
Unless you're bad.
Well, yeah, there's that too. I want something on that level of weird as your base character, as your base investigator. So, like, my immediate thought was, okay, give us like the ghost that we've seen in a few bits of art, some spirit, something.
Stand together.
Yeah, and stand together, and
The mistake ghost.
and guiding spirit is a thing, and
Right. No, I was just thinking that'd be funny if the ghost that isn't supposed to be a ghost in the art, like the one that got there by mistake,
I forgot about
ends
that.
up becoming an investigator.
I always forget that Matt didn't realize that was a ghost. Yeah, so that would be kind of where I'd go with it. I'd want to do something kind of weird and wacky. Chances are, with the way I'd go with it, it would be very easily explainable as a mystic. So yeah, something along those lines, where it's
Well,
go on.
I was gonna say, okay, well, yours is probably weirder in that it's an incorporeal or alien thing. My brain went immediately to back when TFA was announced, and we knew it was taking place in Mexico. And I messaged Matt immediately, and I said, if the Guardian isn't a luchador in a tuxedo, I'm going to be pissed. So that's what I want, is a luchador in a tuxedo. Mine's weirder in that it doesn't fit the tone, but yours is weirder in that it's not a person. You know?
Well, would that be a guardian?
I would think so.
Yeah.
I mean, the one like the role or the way that I pictured it would be a Guardian. And it would be like, it'd be all about like combat tests without weapons. And then like working in some kayfabe stuff in there where like you can ignore damage or stuff like that, or like some sort of self-healing. I didn't actually like stat it out or anything like that. It was just like, that's where my brain went immediately when I heard Mexico, and I was like, there better be a luchador in there, and then there was nothing. So
Fair enough. Ian?
This is kind of on the cuff. I haven't really thought about this in too much detail, but I think it would be fun to have, because we have some investigators that flirt a little bit with the dark side, but I think it'd be fun to have someone who's really riding that line And if anyone's familiar with like the Dragonlance novels from back in the day, the character of Raistlin, who's like a wizard who's on the good guy's side, but ultimately he's pursuing his own power, and it's always unclear where his true loyalties lie. Like, I think
of course that'd be someone you fucking identify with.
I mean, it's not too much of a surprise, right?
But probably like over there.
A mystic or a seeker, mad scientist types, like something along those lines that maybe lets you interact with and take control of the enemies on the board, but kind of has a pretty substantial downside that you can totally go dark if you're not careful. I think something would be fun along those lines.
Maybe like a built-in weakness, or like their signature weakness is like an upgrading, almost like Doomed, where the more it comes up, you have to replace it with worse and worse versions. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I also want to say that ever since we did our like Arkham Files investigator roundup, where we looked at all the investigators that haven't been in the card game yet, I've just been super excited about getting an actual photographer and like what that would look like, knowing how Hawkeye folding camera works. Like, what would an investigator that is not that same exact mechanic, but that plays with that idea that taking pictures is collecting evidence, that sort of thing. Like, what would that look like? I've always been excited by that since we talked about it. So
yeah, agreed.
Which is not connected in any way to your thing. I just wanted to say
that's fair.
Which that basically sums up me. So
El Photo, the luchador photographer.
Photo.
All right. Well, thanks, Jesse, for the question. Guys, let's move it on into Tentacle time.
Mm-hmm.
Ian, aside from the holiday craziness, what's been grabbing you?
Oh, just kind of a few things, putting the finishing touches on my game design so I can start getting that play tested, and hopefully this year looking to hopefully get it out there in some form. But we'll see. I started playing Breath of the Wild finally. Which, yeah.
Oh, I'm sad Scott's not here to join in the chorus.
I know. A few of us have talked about it on the podcast before, so I won't go too into it, but man, it's a good game.
It's a really good game.
And I feel like I've talked in various places that I'm not necessarily just a fan of open world for open world's sake. Like, I feel like it's overused a lot of times, that some designers and companies just throw open world on something so they can say, oh, there's like 80 hours, but it's kind of empty in a way. But there's something so addicting about the open world in Breath of the Wild. Like, I'm always on my way to do something, and then I get sidetracked because there's something that catches my eye, like, ooh, shiny. And then I'm off hunting some piece of gear or a horse or whatever it may be. So,
Ian, I'm gonna give you the great secret. You think that's great how it is? Try playing that game high. Gonna throw that out there.
Sure.
Forget what fucking game you're playing at a certain point.
Then you are, Link. I think it takes so many elements of other games, but just does it in a more intuitive and simple way. Like, for example, there's lots of open world games that have, like, say, potion making or crafting gear. But for some reason, I just never engage in it. Like, I just want to keep going with the story. I don't want to collect materials to build freaking gear. Like, that's not my wheelhouse. But in Breath of the Wild, I love collecting materials and cooking. Like, there's something so intuitive about it. Yeah.
And you get to know the cadence of the song, so you know before the thing's even produced whether or not you fucked the recipe up or not. It's great.
Yeah, I think because it just kind of makes sense. Like, oh, if I throw fish and mushrooms together, like, what's gonna happen? Like, I don't know.
That's what's great about it, is you can just kind of shoot from the hip the whole time and still produce completely usable items. But if you really want to dive into exactly what adds the status boosts and like all the different things, you can, and you can just look it up on the internet and see what the different recipes will yield.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
And I think also because the weapons just and stuff continually breaks, it forces you to try out a bunch of different types of weapons. And whereas otherwise in other games, you might just get stuck in a progression like, this is my weapon now. Okay, I found the next upgraded weapon. And yeah. I don't know. It's been recommended everywhere, so it's not like I'm breaking ground recommending it. But even if you don't think you'll like it, definitely play Breath of the Wild.
It's like I am a huge fan of like the N64 era of Zelda games. Like Ocarina of Time, I've played so many damn times.
Yeah,
really
it's a
like
classic.
Majora's Mask. Breath of the Wild is the best Zelda game ever made. Fight me.
Yeah, I haven't played all of them, maybe like half of existing Zelda games, but yeah, I think it blows all of them out of the water, and that's saying a lot, because yeah, Ocarina of Time, I mean, I played the heck out of that game. That's probably one of the games I've played the most of in life.
Yep.
But, yeah.
Yep. Excellent. Nick, what's been grabbing you?
Geez, what have I been doing? Okay. So for video games, I've been playing, I got back into, so I bought Control. I'm going to start 5 different sentences apparently. Yeah, I bought Control. And I'm probably about 5 or 6 hours into it, and I've been hearing great things from people in our Roll20 server. But it hasn't grabbed me. And I think I've nailed down why. I still am planning to finish it. It's just dropped down on the priority list, unfortunately. But I think I figured out why. There's a couple different reasons. One is the text is just too small for the distance that I am from my television. So if my wife isn't watching me play it and she can't read the notes for me, I literally, like, this is my old man moment. I have to get up and, like, walk 3 feet closer to the television to be able to read the text on the notes. And that has turned into me just ignoring a lot of the text, which I understand is a huge part of that game, like as far as like the world building. So that part's kind of lost on me, unfortunately, and that's just because I need glasses and I haven't gotten them yet. But also on top of that too, but also on top of that comes the combat. It really feels like, and I don't know if this, I'm not versed enough in the actual process of game design, but it feels like the combat was designed with all of the pieces. Like that was when they designed combat, and then the progression of it was they just removed a bunch of the pieces, and your progression is then getting those. So it feels like combat currently, for me, where I only have like 2 powers and a gun, it feels like it's missing a bunch, and so then it's not that engaging, and it actually becomes more frustrating, because I feel like just the controls and the way the character moves and the things, like the fact that there's so many dead there's so many dead buttons on the controller, makes me feel like this would be more fun if I could just, or I would be more into it if I could just get a little bit more, you know what I mean? Like if I could just fill in some of these buttons. I know it gets better, and I know and I love what it does. Like I love the world, what little bit I know of it. And I love the story and how it's just, you're full of questions from the word go. And it seems like even the character you're playing, who doesn't know much about Control, knows mountains more than you do as the player. I think that's really cool. So yeah, so I bought that, and played it for a while and then stopped. And then I bought, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag again. This is my second time purchasing this game because I bought it for PS3. Yeah, and I almost got 100% on PS3, and now I'm playing that again on PS4. And I've played 2 Assassin's Creeds. I played the first one for an hour, and I played Black Flag for about 60 hours.
Oh, wow.
And I love it. It's insane. Yeah, I love it so much.
I just bought it for the Switch, so that's good. I'm coming out soon.
Switch now?
Shit.
Yeah,
so
yeah, it's on the Switch now. It's packaged with another Assassin's Creed game.
I want to think that I'll eventually get to buy that because it's in my wheelhouse. I like Assassin's Creed games in general, and it's pirate themed, and like the ship combat was the best part of 3.
Yeah,
my backlog is so long. There's no way I'm ever gonna get to it.
Yeah. It's never ending.
So then, not being content with going like 4 years back and going to Black Flag. Just last week, I bought Fallout 1 and 2 on Steam, which are like 15-year-old games. But that's just because I've been watching a lot of H-Bomber Guy's videos on YouTube.
Yeah,
and he
you
had
do.
a big long one about...
Yeah, you do.
It's so good. So good.
I love that,
He had
man.
a big long one about how Fallout 3 is garbage. And I watched that, and I was like, I agree with everything. And he did a lot of comparisons between Fallout 3 and the earlier titles, which completely blew past me. I never played them. So I downloaded those, and I haven't actually fired one up yet, but I'm looking forward to delving into those classic isometric, like super classic computer RPGs. And then finally, the last thing is we've actually, like the Astral Tides role-playing game that we've been playing every other Sunday, I actually streamed our last session, and I will be streaming the rest of the campaign unless something goes wrong. And our next session is tomorrow night. Ian is a part of that, and we've got about 7 sessions left until the end of the campaign. So if you're interested, I pop the links into our off-topic channel on Discord, so you can pop in and watch us tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Excellent. Nick, okay, so since you like H-Bomber Guide clearly as much as I do, let me drop another recommendation your way.
Please.
And he's actually referenced him in some of his videos, and that's Philosophy Tube.
Oh, yeah. I've been meaning to check that out, but I haven't
Dude's
yet.
name is Oliver Thorne. He's my current man crush. He does good work. It's a little less comedic. He does funny stuff, but it's a little bit more heady, a little bit more cerebral, but he'll take a philosophical topic and just go with it. And he does
my issue
stupid
with
costumes and funny metaphors and
My issue with H-Bomber Guy is just that he doesn't release enough videos.
Yeah.
Like, I looked at his whole backlog, and I'm like, there's really not much there.
It's
like, I'm
super
used to
slow.
content creators who make, like, 2 videos a day. You know what I mean? Like, or they release 2 videos a day. Anyway, have you watched the Pathologic video from H-Bomber Guy, his most recent one?
I did. That one's really long.
I'm really thinking about getting Pathologic, even though it sounds like it's...
I was about to say, hang on, did we watch the same video? Because he literally says, don't play this game. Let me tell you about it instead.
I know, the whole thing's spoiled for me, so the experience would be lost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But everything about it sounds so visceral, you know? So...
Yeah, and it's very fascinating because he breaks down game design in a very accessible and entertaining way. Like, I've tried to approach different content producers who really talk about game design, and I think they do it at a level that is just not where I'm at, but I think Harris does it in a really accessible way. He takes note at things that I think are very interesting. Yeah, and that video in particular is very interesting because on its face, that game seems terrible and no one should ever play it. But when you actually do...
Yeah, it's one of the best games, apparently,
I guess.
like, ever made.
I'll never find out, but the video's entertaining. Okay, I suppose for my part, this is kind of a weird one for me. Just because of the craziness of the holidays and the fact that I've had to have, like, my game table packed up and so on and so forth. I haven't played much outside of the occasional game of Arkham. But I did watch a few things, and one series that kind of surprised me because it was something I hadn't really heard of much is I think it started as a Lifetime series and is now on Netflix. It's called You. And what it is it's kind of a thriller. It centers on a story of a woman being stalked, but it's from the perspective of the stalker. And it's constantly narrated by what he's thinking and how he's justifying what he's doing. And, like, it's really fascinating because it all makes sense. Like, he's doing horrible things that if you took away the voiceover, you would just be sitting there in horror going, oh God, he's being creepy, he's being violent, he's being obsessive. Like, it's just like all these things. But when you hear the voiceover, you just, all of a sudden you're, in a morbid way, you're kind of in his corner a little bit, if that makes sense. Anyway, I found it to be... I've kind of gotten into, like, really, really amateur psych stuff in the past 6 months, and I found it to just be a fascinating watch. So it's a pretty quick thing. It's on Netflix. Season 2 just came out. Was also really interesting. So check it out. Was good. Surprised me. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. All right. Well, as Ian mentioned earlier, check out mythosmerch.com. Check out the Miskatonic AV Club. Check out, and that was a joke, sorry. That I probably should have, I buried the lead on that one. But what you should check out is Look What I Found. As always, we've gotten a cool player card preview from FFG. So check that out on our YouTube channel. And, God, what else? I don't know. Our plug list is really long, but I feel like we've done it all now.
What we should do is like select 3 per episode and just like say those 3 for that episode. You know what I mean?
Okay, I'll pick one last one. I haven't mentioned it in a while because we haven't really used it and people kind of stopped calling in, but we have a hotline, guys. It's the Mythos Busters hotline. You can call us at 203-493-6984. That's 203-493-MYTH. And drop us a comment, drop us a question, tell us why we're wrong about the many things that we're probably wrong about. And we'd love to hear from you.
Yep.
So yeah, that's the third thing.
We should get people
We
should get people to do the reviews again. The impression reviews, those fell off too.
Oh yeah, okay. So we'll name a fourth. So if you leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, which is unfortunately just the most accessible place for us to get those, you can name a host and an impression you'd like them to do, and we will read your review live. Well, not live. We will read your review recorded on the show, and those usually end up being ridiculous train wrecks. So
yes, accurate.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for episode 74 of Mythos Busters, and we'll catch you on 75. Bye.
Bye. Jake, to go with what you said, all right, so Hispanic person, you have family, family who calls you Yake. So in the game Beyond Good and Evil, the main character's name was Jade.
Not a thing I expected to talk about tonight, but I'm into it.
This has always annoyed me. The main character's name is Jade, and there's a Latin American character.
Oh yeah, he's like the vendor character.
Mm-hmm. And he would always say things like he would call her Yade, because J. But the subtitles would spell it out Yade.
True.
And that always annoyed me because he's not saying that. He's not saying Yade. He's saying Jade. He's just saying it with his accent. And yet the subtitles still went Yade. And I'm like, why the fuck? Like, come on.
Those goddamn French.
Oh yeah, it was
Dark
Ubisoft
Tower,
France, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Michel Ancel, wasn't it? Was the director for that one? Says, game directors get to be blamed for literally everything that goes wrong with the game. All right.
Yake, what called Jake? Oh, I think you might be right.
Yeah, I think it is.
I want to say Oi calls him Ache, like a bark.
Oh yeah, Ake. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think. I don't know. I'm into
I didn't
Wolves of the
like
Collar
that
right now.
I didn't like that the dog creature could talk, even if it was stupid little, even if
like
it was
a
just
parrot
that.
or a raven.
I didn't like it. It pulled me out of the story.
Really? All of the
demon
things
sex
that could
stuff
pull you out of
didn't,
that fucking story, the talking dog thing was the one, huh?
That did it. Not the Doctor Dooms with lightsabers.
Yes,
Spoiler. Okay. Spoiler alert. Probably should have started with that.
Nick doesn't like small, furry, anthropomorphic creatures.
Shut up! There are reasons. It's not... I don't like... No, not porgs. It's, Alright, I'll get into this once, and then I'm fucking done.
Oh boy, I can't fucking wait now.
we were talking in our Roll20 server about RPG, the Mouse Guard RPG, where the players play mice, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's so cool because then like a regular snake is like a dragon," and I'm like I said, I have always found that boring because why would I? If I want to play a mouse, I want to play like a super mouse. I don't want to play a mouse that's living in the real world because that's. You're still just a mouse.
That
you know
is
what
a
I mean? Like
depressing
you're just
existence.
exactly. And they're like, well, no, and everybody's saying like, oh, Nick hates mice, and it's like I don't hate mice. I just don't think the idea of playing a mouse in the real world is Like imagine like Ralph, or what's the motorcycle mouse? Is that Ralph?
Yep, Ralph.
Yeah, like imagine that as like an RPG. Like you play Ralph, but he had a motorcycle though, so that was different. I don't know. This is already... I can see it's falling apart. I hate Stuart Little.
Oh, wow.
Network. I hate Stuart Little. I don't hate it.
You have much stronger opinions on talking mice than I expected.
I just, for some reason, it's never been exciting. Like, not when they're the central character, but like if it's
what
like
are your feelings on Dangereux? Or whatever that one was called.
Despero?
Yeah, that one. Okay. Yeah.
Never seen it.
All right.
No interest.
So I assume Honey, I Shrunk the Kids never grabbed you then.
That I liked. Because then the tension is them trying to get back to full size. Okay. With a mouse, it's like, I gotta get back to full size. Oh, nope, never mind, this is me. Fuck me. Like...
This might be the weirdest thing you have a strong opinion about, and that is fucking saying something.
Splinter is human sized, so I don't have a problem with that because he's cool. Because he's a human sized rat who knows kung fu. If he were a regular sized rat that knew kung fu, it'd be dumb.
Okay.
Because then someone could literally just smack him with a broom and he can't do anything.
How about Nim?
I don't know it.
The Secret of Nim, really?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, we're like a year apart. How did you miss that?
Again, I don't have an interest. If your selling point is the tiny world of mice, I don't have an interest.
That's fair. But you know what? No one has interest in Don Bluth movies, Nick. They just get forced on us. And sometimes they're pretty okay.
Jake, I appreciate the story that's trying to be told. I want to be clear. It's the trappings of the story that I don't care for. Does that make sense?
No.
Algernon.
No, but I think
Flowers for Algernon? Anyway. Wait a minute. No. Flowers for Algernon? Come on. The mouse wasn't the character. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about, was Flowers for Algernon. Okay, you're just naming fictional mice now. Green Mile.
Anything involving mice now.
Yes, let's move on, please.
Yeah.